Right now, the average kitchen filter pitcher is rated for roughly 40 gallons per filter, while a $20 Tractor Supply combination of a 10-inch filter housing and a 5-micron sediment plus carbon cartridge pair is rated for thousands of gallons and costs a fraction of the boutique kit. You have probably walked past that blue housing in the farm supply aisle, sitting on the shelf next to the livestock water fittings, and dismissed it as something only a rancher needs. It is not. Walk it over to the plumbing aisle, screw on a connector, and the same boring housing can quietly outperform a $300 countertop kit. When the well water runs cloudy, the city issues a boil water advisory, or the pressure drops after a storm. Stick through to number one, because the most expensive kit is not the one that handles the most water, and the cheapest per-gallon filter in the store is not the one most preppers ever consider buying. The pattern is not that expensive filters are bad, it is that filter cost is measured in gallons, not in dollars, and most households never run the per-gallon math. The items on this list move across maintenance gaps, replacement surprises, lifespan shorteners, sizing mistakes, and the reusable plumbing hardware that turns the farm supply aisle into the most underrated filter aisle in the whole store. Number 9. Countertop pitcher filter refill cost. A countertop filter pitcher is the default choice for a household that wants cleaner water without a remodel, and the replacement cartridge is the recurring line item that quietly does the math. Most pitcher filters are rated for 40 to 150 gallons per cartridge, and replacement cartridges run from $6 to $10 each, sometimes more for name-brand versions. The pitcher looks affordable at the register. The refill schedule is where the real cost lives. The hidden weak link is the per-gallon math. A household of 4 drinking and cooking with filtered water can chew through a $6 to $10 cartridge in a few weeks, especially if the source water is hard or chlorinated. The cost per gallon quietly climbs into the same range as bottled water, and the household treats the pitcher as a fixed monthly bill without ever running the math. The pitcher is still useful. It is just not the cheapest filtered gallon in the house. The real trap is the habit of treating the pitcher as a set-it-and-forget-it appliance. The pitcher needs the same attention as any other filter, and the per-gallon cost is the easiest way to notice whether the household is overpaying for clean water. Treat the cartridge as a recurring cost, not a one-time purchase. Track the install date and the gallons. If the household is running through cartridges faster than expected, the answer is rarely, buy a bigger pitcher. The answer is a reusable housing with a higher capacity cartridge that lowers the per-gallon cost by an order of magnitude. Number 8. Undersink reverse osmosis membrane replacement. Reverse osmosis systems look like the gold standard of household filtration, and the sticker price does not tell the whole story. The RO membrane itself is typically rated for 2 to 3 years under normal household use, but the pre-filters and post-filters need replacement every 6 to 12 months, and a full replacement pack routinely runs $30 to $60. The system that looked like a one-time purchase quietly turns into a small annual subscription. The hidden weak link is sediment on the pre-filter. The first stage of an RO system is supposed to catch sediment before it reaches the membrane. When source water is heavy with sediment, that pre-filter clogs faster than the schedule assumes, and the membrane has to work harder against higher pressure. The membrane's rated lifespan quietly shortens. The household blames the membrane for wearing out, when the real cause was the upstream filter changing frequency. The shelf signal is the slow drain at the dedicated RO faucet. When the pre-filter is loading with sediment, the membrane cannot push water through at the rated flow, and the household notices a thin trickle at the small faucet on the sink. By the time the trickle is visible, the pre-filter has been working harder than rated for weeks. The right move is to swap the pre-filter on the calendar, not on the slow faucet signal. The deeper twist is the cost of premium water versus the cost of membrane replacement. A household that paid $400 for an RO system is paying for very clean water. The cost per gallon is very low once the system is installed. The cost per year of consumables is the part nobody runs until the first replacement pack arrives. Pair a sediment pre-filter upstream of the RO system if the source water runs cloudy. Change the pre-filter on schedule, not when the flow drops. The membrane stays healthy, the household pays less per year, and the RO system lives up to the rating on the spec sheet. Number 7. Inline fridge filter replacement schedule. Refrigerator water filters are the filter most homeowners replace on the calendar and never check otherwise. Most fridge filters are rated for 6 months, or roughly 200 to 300 gallons, and the manufacturer assumes a normal municipal water supply. On well water or on a municipal line that occasionally runs high sediment, the filter can clog before the calendar says it should, and the household notices only when the dispenser trickles. The hidden weak link is the flow rate. A fridge filter that is partly clogged still delivers water. It just delivers water slowly. The household learns to hold the cup for a few extra seconds and never thinks about the filter being past its prime. Worse, the filter that is past its rated lifespan is no longer removing what the label says it removes. The fridge filter is the kitchen's most trusted filter, and it is also the one most quietly running past its rating. The visible signal is the trickle at the dispenser, but the more reliable signal is the smell of the water. A carbon filter that has exhausted its capacity lets chlorine through, and the water tastes faintly of the tap. The household that has been drinking the filtered water for months can no longer detect the difference, but a guest who drinks municipal water elsewhere can identify the taste in a single glass. The fridge filter is the filter the household trusts most and verifies least. The calming detail is that fridge filters are easy to swap. Turn off the supply, twist the old cartridge out, twist the new one in, run 2 gallons through to flush, and the system is back on schedule. The mistake is treating the swap as a chore to be done only when the calendar reminds. Check the flow rate at the dispenser every month or two. On heavy sediment source water, install a $20 sediment housing upstream of the fridge line, and the filter runs like new for the full 6 months. Number 6. UV light replacement bulb interval. UV purification units are the quiet workhorses of serious household water treatment, and the bulb is the part nobody replaces on time. UV purification bulbs are typically rated for 12 months of continuous use to maintain the rated dose, even when the bulb still glows visibly. A glowing bulb is not the same as a purifying bulb. UV output drops long before the eye can see the dim. The hidden weak link is a system that has been working for 2 years without a bulb change. The unit lights up. The readout says normal. The bulb is well past its rated dose. The household believes the system is working because nothing is wrong, and the actual purification quietly slipped a year ago. UV is effective only when the bulb is on schedule, and the only way to know the schedule is being honored is to track the install date. The shelf signal is the calendar. Most UV units have a sticker on the housing with a date written in marker. The honest test is to look at the date and run the math. If the bulb is past 12 months, the rated dose is gone. If the bulb is past 18 months, the system is treating water with a bulb that is doing maybe half of the rated work. The system is still on. It is not still doing what the spec sheet says it does. The reason this matters even in a household that also runs a sediment filter and a carbon block is that UV is the final barrier against biological contamination. A well hit by a flood, a mainline break during a storm, or a cistern breached by runoff can push biological load into the household water. UV is the safety net that catches what sediment and carbon cannot. Mark the install date on the unit with a paint pen. Replace the bulb every 12 months, even if it still glows. The lamp that does the work is measured in photons, not in visible light, and the only way to know the photons are landing is to track the calendar. Number 5. Faucet-mounted filter limited capacity. Faucet-mounted filters are the convenient middle ground. No plumbing, no pitcher, just twist and drink. They are typically rated for 100 to 200 gallons per cartridge, and the form factor is small enough that the housing fills with sediment relatively quickly. The filter that was crisp at month 1 is sluggish at month 3, and the household adjusts to the slower flow without realizing the cartridge is past its useful life. The hidden weak link is the form factor. A small cartridge in a small housing has a small capacity. On well water or any source that runs high sediment, the cartridge can fill with debris in a fraction of the rated lifespan, and the flow at the tap quietly tells the story. The faucet mount filter is the right tool for travel, the right tool for a single apartment, and the wrong tool as a household's primary sediment defense. The visible signal is the swivel that gets harder to turn, the spray that breaks into multiple streams, or the splatter pattern that signals a clogged aerator screen. The household puts up with the inconvenience because the filter is still working. The filter is still flowing. It is not still filtering to the rated spec. The faucet mount is the most accepted compromise in household filtration, and the compromise is the trap. The deeper twist is that the faucet mount filter often becomes the household's excuse to skip the bigger housing and cartridge install. "We already have a filter on the tap," is the reason the household does not buy the $20 combo. The faucet mount is a backup, not a replacement. Use a faucet mount filter as a backup, not a primary. The primary is the housing and cartridge pair that runs thousands of gallons per swap. The faucet mount earns its place in the drawer for a power outage, a hotel room, or a relative's house that has the same problem. Number 4. Whole house filter sizing mistake. A whole house filter housing is one of the smartest additions a household can make, and the wrong size is one of the most common mistakes. A 10-inch housing on a high-flow household with multiple simultaneous fixtures will drop pressure across the cartridge and shorten cartridge life. A 20-inch housing on a low-flow household will leave the cartridge underused and waste capacity. The housing is the engine of the system, and the wrong size quietly tells the rest of the household through low pressure at the shower. The hidden weak link is the cartridge that says, "Fits 10-inch housing," without saying, "Fits this household's flow." The cartridge vendor lists flow ratings in gallons per minute. The household installer buys the housing and the cartridge together without ever cross-checking the flow rating against the home's peak demand. 6 months later, the cartridge is loaded with sediment, the flow at the shower is half what it should be, and the household blames the cartridge. The reason this matters before the housing is even installed is that the wrong size costs the household twice. The first cost is the housing itself. The second cost is the cartridge that wears out early because the housing is undersized for the home. Match housing to peak household flow. A 10-inch housing meets small households and single fixture use. A 20-inch housing covers larger households with multiple fixtures, irrigation tie-ins, or higher sediment loads. The right size is the boring detail that decides whether the system feels invisible or becomes a daily complaint. Number 3. Standard 10-inch clear housing. The reusable vessel. Not every filter quietly misleads. A standard 10-inch clear housing is one of the most underrated hardware items in the rural store, and it accepts both 5-micron sediment cartridges and carbon block cartridges in the same vessel. The housing is reusable indefinitely. The cartridges swap out. The fittings are standard across the industry. The same housing that filters well water on a homestead can move to a different property, accept a different cartridge, and keep working. The clear housing makes the cartridge visible, which is the single most useful feature for a household learning to read filter behavior. When the cartridge starts yellowing, the homeowner knows. When the cartridge is full of rust, the homeowner sees it. The clear housing turns a maintenance task into a 30-second visual check, and the visual check is the discipline that prevents failures. The hidden strength of the housing is the standard sizing. A 10-inch housing is the same dimension across most major brands, which means cartridges are interchangeable. A household that runs out of one brand can swap in another brand from any rural store. The housing is the platform. The cartridge is the consumable. The platform is what the household invests in once. The consumable is what the household replaces regularly. The calming detail is that the install is 1 wrench and 1 roll of plumber's tape. The install takes an hour. The result is a filter housing that does not look like a kitchen appliance and does not need a sink drain connection. Pick a 10-inch clear housing with a pressure relief button and a standard mounting bracket. Install it on the main line upstream of the kitchen. Keep spare cartridges on the shelf. The housing is the reusable vessel that turns the cheap cartridge into the highest volume filter in the house. Number 2. 5-micron sediment cartridge, the first stage. A 5-micron sediment cartridge is the boring workhorse of household filtration, and it is the cartridge that extends the life of every more expensive filter in the house. A 5-micron sediment cartridge is typically rated for 8,000 to 15,000 gallons, which is roughly 2 orders of magnitude more than a typical pitcher filter. The cartridge removes particulates, sand, rust, silt, scale, that would otherwise clog a downstream carbon block, a fridge filter, or a pitcher cartridge within days. The hidden weak link of the more expensive filters is the upstream sediment they were never designed to handle. When that sediment is removed by a 5-micron cartridge first, the carbon block that follows runs longer, the fridge filter runs the full 6 months, and the pitcher filter stops gumming up. The $10 to $15 sediment cartridge is the workhorse that makes the rest of the household's filtration system look smarter than it is. The shelf signal is the color of the cartridge. A 5-micron cartridge that has been working for 2 months on a moderate well will look like a tea bag. The same cartridge on a clean municipal line will look almost new after 4 months. The visual read is the diagnostic. When the cartridge turns from white to tan to brown, the household knows the filter is doing real work. When the cartridge stays white for 6 months, the household can run the cartridge the full rated lifespan without worry. The reason this is number 2 and not number 1 is that the sediment cartridge is the partner, not the headline. The carbon block that runs after it is the cartridge that does the taste and odor work the household actually notices. Change the sediment cartridge every 3 to 6 months on well water. Keep 2 spares on the shelf. Number 1. Carbon block cartridge, the cheap volume filter. The most underrated filter in the entire rural store is the carbon block cartridge that pairs with the 10-inch housing. And it is the one most preppers never stock at all. A standard 10-inch carbon block cartridge is typically rated for 6,000 to 12,000 gallons at roughly $10 to $15 per cartridge, which works out to pennies per gallon of filtered water. The same household that buys a $300 countertop kit can run a carbon block cartridge for a year at a fraction of the cost. The carbon block does the taste and odor work and reduces chlorine across thousands of gallons per change. The sediment cartridge in front of it keeps the carbon block from clogging early. The housing behind both accepts standard fittings and rebuilds repeatedly. The Boring Trio is the system that delivers the cheapest filtered gallon in the household, and it lives in the farm supply aisle, not the kitchen aisle. The reason this is number 1 is that it corrects the most expensive mistake in household water preparation, assuming the prettiest kit is the best kit. The $300 countertop unit is real equipment. The $20 combination is the cheapest per-gallon defense in the house. The household that runs both has a redundant system that handles a boil water advisory, a cloudy well, or a slow faucet without an emergency run to the store. The carbon block earns the final position because it is the cartridge that turns the boring housing into the workhorse of the household, and it is the cartridge that delivers the cheapest filtered gallon in the entire store. Here is the bigger picture. A $300 kitchen filter kit can quietly cost more per gallon than a $20 rural store combo once the consumables are tallied. A pitcher filter runs 40 to 150 gallons per cartridge. An RO system carries a recurring membrane and pre-filter cost. A fridge filter quietly clogs on sediment-heavy water. A UV bulb silently loses its dose after a year. A faucet mount filter throttles under sediment. An undersized housing drops pressure across the household. But a 10-inch clear housing, a 5-micron sediment cartridge, and a carbon block cartridge run thousands of gallons per swap, cost pennies per gallon, and live on the same shelf as the livestock fittings. And remember, across thousands of gallons per cartridge pair, the Boring $20 rural store combo delivers the cheapest filtered gallon in the household. That is not a marketing claim. That is per-gallon arithmetic that any homeowner can run on the back of a receipt. This week, read the per-gallon rating on your current kitchen filter and check the replacement date. This month, pick up a 10-inch clear housing and a 5-micron sediment cartridge and install the housing upstream of the kitchen line. Before the next boil water advisory, well service visit, or pressure drop, add a carbon block cartridge to the housing and keep 2 spares on the shelf. The smartest filter system is not the one with the most expensive countertop unit. It is the one where a boring, affordable $20 combination quietly handles the bulk of the household's filtered water, and the household that runs the per-gallon math never sees the filter as a luxury line item again. Which filter in your house have you been replacing more often than the label says you should?